come to order. Conference committee reports.
Conference committee report on House File number 3900, an act relating to state government proposing an amendment to the Minnesota Constitution. The report is addressed to the Honorable Lisa M. Damuth, Speaker of the House, and the Honorable Bobby Joe Champion, President of the Senate. The conference committee is signed by 4 out of the 4 members on behalf of the House and 3 out of the 4 members on behalf of the Senate. IGO moves that the report of the conference committee on House File number 3900 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by the conference committee.
I recognize the member from Itasca, Representative IGO, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we have a really good conference committee report in front of us because it is the bill that we passed unanimously out of this House. We had to do a quick conference committee and just kind of iron out an amendment. Had a really good conversation. I want to thank the conferees here in the House, Representative O'Driscoll, Representative Youakim, Representative Long. We had a really good conference committee, discussed the amendment the Senate put on, and came to the conclusion that it wasn't necessary, which is why the conference committee report we are returning today is the clean bill that this chamber passed unanimously. And that is the conference committee report, Madam Speaker.
Any discussion to the conference committee report? There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the conference committee report say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the conference.
Third reading, House File number 3900 as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Discussion to the bill. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to thank, again, Representative Igo for shepherding this bill through and all the work that's done on it, and Representative Long for your work, and Representative O'Driscoll from teaching all of us all along about school trust lands.
Further discussion? I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just also wanted to take a second opportunity on the floor to thank Representative Igo for the good work on this. This is a terrific bill that's going to do our schools a lot of good. And we returned the House position, held strong, and I'm glad we were able to get it done.
Further discussion? I recognize the member from Itasca, Representative Igo.
Again, members, thank you for the wonderful dialogue that got this bill done. I hope we can all vote yes again today, but most importantly, we need to go home and tell our districts and our constituents to vote yes on this so we can increase funding to schools at zero cost to the taxpayer. Vote green. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Burkle.
Go.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hiltsley.
Momani Hiltsley, aye.
Momani Hiltsley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 134 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title is agreed to. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce that the Senate has concurred in and adopted the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File number 4282, an act relating to forecast adjustments. The message is signed Thomas S. Boddern, Secretary of the Senate. Youakim moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File number 4282 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Conference Committee.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is the Conference Committee for Senate File 4282. Originally, when the other body sent this to us, it had all forecast articles on K through 12, Human Services, Children, Youth and Families, and Transportation forecast adjustments. We sent it back with just the K through 12 adjustments, but after long conversations between our House and Senate leadership, as well as the chairs and co-chairs of the K through 12 Education Finance Committee, there was an agreement reached to include all 4 forecast articles, as well as some of the no-cost items that were agreed to in the education arena. As a reminder, the 4 forecast articles align their individual areas with the February 26 forecast data in order to fund really important programs. There were 5 other items that were included in the conference committee report that had either passed in the House or the Senate and had been agreed upon and are no-cost items. Briefly, those items were 2 fund transfers, one for Representative Vernig's district, West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, and Eagan, and another one for Representative Rarick for Maple Lake. Both of Representative Vernig's bill was actually heard in the House Education Finance Committee, but both allow their respective school districts to transfer money from their building construction fund to their reserve account for operating capital. Members, like I said, we heard Representative Vernig's bill and received a favorable response, and I felt like Co-Chair Creech and I felt like if we included this one, that we should include Representative Rarick's fund transfer as well. We also included Senate File 4144, which is a Representative Lawrence bill that allows schools to utilize operating capital revenue to pay for utility services. This had been included in the original Senate Education Finance bill. There's House File 3607 from Representative Jordan, clarifying licensing for highly qualified paras that work in all of your buildings. This bill is also traveling on its own, but you know how this place goes. You put it wherever you can. You all have voted on this, and we've talked about it on the floor. There's also an extension that came in through a governor's proposal just to extend some grant funds for schools in the gender-neutral bathroom area. And then finally, in there was language included regarding the disbursement of school trust lands that Representative Igo and Representative Long worked on together. Members, this is an important bill to pass so that our schools, human services, children, youth, and families, and transportation departments can get their forecast adjustments and that we can get a little bit more done this year. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Discussion to the conference committee report. I recognize the member from Mauer, Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I'm going to say that we cannot adopt this conference committee report. We cannot do this. If we're going to have the understanding that we were going to have a single forecast bill of education, that we were going to have it clean, that we fought for it to have it clean. We fought to make sure that it was going to be a single subject, that it was going to be a single committee. And then to find that we're opening it back up and trading things, and yet literacy is not included, one of those things that was agreed upon, no-cost items. It's appalling. It's appalling that we couldn't use something as universal as literacy to be able to, if we're going to open this bill back up and let it be the carry-all for everything. We talk about how literacy is a bipartisan thing, and yet it wasn't important enough to put it in this bill if we're going to make sure to open it up to everything. So we need to not adopt this committee report, because I think that if we're just going to make this be something that's going to be the catch-all, we need to adopt some things that are necessary for our schools in the READ Act. I worked tirelessly with Representative Clardy and with people on the other in the other body. We have bipartisan, bicameral language that was agreed upon and was not included even after we decided that we were going. Listen, I understand how this place works. I understand that we needed to make sure that we were negotiating in good faith. I dropped the provisions because we were going to keep everything single subject, and yet we couldn't find a pathway for literacy. Madam Speaker, thank you for the work, but I move that we do not adopt this committee report.
Representative Mueller moves that the House refuse to adopt the conference committee report on Senate File 4282, and the bill would be returned to the conference committee.
Madam Speaker, ask for a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing more than 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion, I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a point of clarification for the member that just spoke. There was no agreement on the READ Act language when we were finishing up this conference committee report. There are other vehicles out there. Discussions can be had. This is not the place to put it. Our schools, our human services, transportation, metro mobility, all depend on this forecast article to have stability in their funding moving forward. I would request a no on returning it to the conference committee.
Further discussion to the motion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the motion to refuse to adopt the report on the conference committee and that the bill would be returned to the conference committee. The clerk will take the roll.
We're a yes on this vote. It's the motion to send it back.
The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Go.
Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hillsley.
Momani Hillsley, no.
Mohani Hillsley votes no. Excuse me.
The clerk will close the roll.
Something in my throat there. Excuse me.
There being 62 ayes and 72 nays, the motion does not prevail. Further discussion on the conference committee before us. Report. I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim.
Thank you, members. Please vote yes.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the conference committee report, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. The motion prevails.
Madam Speaker, division.
The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 4282, as amended by conference.
Further discussion to the motion. Further discussion? I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim. I recognize a member from Morrison, Representative Krisha.
Members, we need to vote green and just move this on.
Any further discussion? I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Youakim.
Thank you, members. Please vote green, but I know we probably won't get a chance right now to thank the folks that really matter in this building, and that's our nonpartisan staff. From all the 4 different divisions for the forecast articles, a special shout out to our nonpartisan staff in education finance, Tim Strom, Christina Pera, and Solveig Beckel. I'd like to also thank our group on the ed finance team, Polly Sirkvenik, our incomparable CA, our CLA, Isabel Anderson and Robin Schmidt, and our researcher, Lauren Savas. I just also want to give a shout out to Jody Withers, the researcher for the GOP caucus, and Janelle Burkle that does the CLA and keeps us all in line for Co-Chair Krisha. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Burkle.
Go.
Burkle, no.
Say it again.
Burkle, no.
Burkle votes no. Momani Hiltzley.
Momani Hiltzley, aye.
Momani Hiltzley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 94 ayes and 37 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the conference, and its title is agreed to. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which the amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 4138, an act relating to civil law, establishing requirements for social media platforms related to accounts for minors. The message is signed Thomas S. Bodden, Secretary of the Senate. Scott moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 4138 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the member from Anoka, the author, Representative Scott, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the social media bill, the Stop the Harms of Addictive Social Media bill, to be precise. This bill was amended in the Senate, and in that amendment, it removed the threat alert language that was put on in the House. That's the only difference, and I would encourage members' support on the motion to concur.
Any discussion on the motion to concur? There being no further discussion on the motion to concur with the Senate amendment, say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File Number 4138, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Further discussion. I recognize the member from Olmsted, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Speaker. This is a great bill. We've talked about it a lot. Thank you all for the work on it, especially Representative Scott. It's a good bill. Vote green, members.
Further discussion. I recognize the author, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And this bill is going to go a long way towards protecting our kids online. It also empowers parents by requiring them to give permission for their students, kids 15 and under, to have a social media account. And I want to thank in House research, I didn't do this last time, I want to thank Mary Davis, who went through a good amount of iterations of this bill. I want to thank the stakeholders and the advocates for this bill. I want to thank representatives in this chamber, Bonner and Smith, for their participation and help on the bill. And I want to thank all of you. I also want to thank the Senate author, Erin May Quaid, and Senator Cruen for their work on it. And I ask for a green vote. Thank you.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hiltzley.
Momani Hiltzley, aye.
Momani Hiltzley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 2 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate, and its title is agreed to. Calendar for today. The first bill on the calendar for today is Senate File 2373. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File Number 2373, an act relating to labor in industry, exempting minor league baseball players from minimum wage and overtime requirements.
There are amendments at the desk. If there's no objection, we will let the author explain the bill before we act on amendments. I recognize the author from Ramsey, Representative Pinto, who will explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the bill before you is a labor policy bill from Chair Baker and me. The bill is identical to provisions that passed off the House floor in House File 3732 on May 4th. That was a bill that contained both labor and jobs provisions. This bill contains just the labor provisions from that bill, with one exception. There is a provision relating to minor league baseball. We've got a small tweak that's going to come in an amendment. That's the only new thing in the bill, and I know there'll be a series of amendments that hopefully will add several other items as well. I say hopefully in the case some of the amendments, maybe not hopefully in others. We'll get into that. But members, looking forward to the discussion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Baker moves to amend Senate File Number 2373, the fourth engrossment. The amendment is coded A2.
I recognize a member from Candio High, Representative Baker, who will explain the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is, as Chair Pinto mentioned, the bill is, we want to make this bill better before we send it back over to Senate. We're going to start with this amendment here, the A2 amendment. Again, provides minor league baseball to not have to follow the overtime rules. What's changing this basically is because they have a collective bargaining agreement. This does not affect the baseball players if they are working at other jobs or anything, but this is just very focused on minor league baseball and when they are performing those functions. So also, I think with my amendment, we've got the RE bill, and Madam Speaker, I might refer to Chair Anderson on that, Paul Anderson, for further discussion about that amendment, for that addition to my amendment.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment to the amendment.
Baker moves to amend his amendment to Senate File Number 2373, the fourth engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A10.
I recognize the author of the amendment to the amendment, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A little bit out of order here. My apologies, members. The A10 amendment talks a little bit about rural cancer research. This is something that we actually passed last year out of our labor bill. It's a very good training ground for new cancer research, cancer doctors that are planning to do this. What we did in this bill is extend the date out a little bit longer for them to utilize the money that they were able to secure. It also allows folks that live in Minnesota to actually get education outside of Minnesota, and then when they return back home, they can be utilizing the same good program. So again, this passed actually very supported out of our committee, and we hope that we were able to add this in because it was not part of the Senate language. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, but I do appreciate a green vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Discussion to the amendment. I recognize a member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would urge a green vote on this in support of this. This was one of those provisions that was in the Jobs and Labor Bill that passed off the House floor with strong support a few weeks ago. It would make rural cancer care work a little bit better and be able to have more oncologists to do that very important work. So, members, I'd urge your support of this amendment. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the amendment to the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the amendment to the amendment is adopted. There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Ray Rauer moves to amend the Baker amendment as amended to Senate File Number 2373, the fourth engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A7.
I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Ray Rauer, to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Simply put, this amendment is about choice, dignity, and access for those who have disabilities and want to work. I will remind you all that this is a bill that we have already passed off of the House floor as part of our House Jobs bill. Currently, there's a backlog on the waivered services side and openings for assistance on the extended employment side. That's what this bill will fix. It will restore choice, allow access for those individuals that need services when they need the services. All parties have agreed to this current amendment. Please vote green.
Further discussion? I recognize the member from Candio High, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, appreciate Representative Rehrauer to bring this bill again forward to make sure it gets in the final version of our bill. This is a great amendment to the amendment, and I look at this as a friendly. Members, please vote green.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the Ray Rauer amendment to the amendment say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Johnson P. moves to amend the Baker amendment to Senate File Number 2373, the fourth engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A8.
I recognize the member from St. Louis, Representative Johnson P., to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment is to extend the unemployment insurance for some miners that were laid off in the mines up on the Iron Range. It just captures some members that were laid off that weren't covered in the bill that we passed last year. This is a bill we passed out of the Labor Committee on the first day of session, and this just makes sure it gets across the finish line. Encourage a yes vote.
Discussion to the amendment. I recognize the member from Itasca, Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank Representative Johnson for getting this bill or this amendment drafted here today. I also want to thank, I got calls and texts from members of both sides of the aisle that were giving me a heads up that this amendment was coming to try and make sure we can get some help for those workers that were laid off in my district. And I just want to say an immense thanks from the men and women of the Iron Range to both sides of the aisle for coming together to make sure we can get this in a bill today. So thank you, Representative Johnson, for the amendment, and I hope we can put it on today.
Further discussion? Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, just confirming that this was in that bill that we passed several weeks ago. I, too, want to give particular thanks to Representative Johnson, because in these final days of session, as things have moved around, there was actually a decent chance that this was not going to happen. And I appreciate that he caught that this is something that had to be added as a secondary amendment. And so that's great work, and urge folks to support it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails and the amendment to the amendment is adopted. There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report.
Anderson P.H. moves to amend the Baker amendment as amended to Senate File Number 2373, the fourth engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A9.
I recognize the member from Pope, Representative Anderson P.H.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This amendment to the amendment has some of the better provisions of our ag bill, and they're good provisions, bipartisan provisions, and a key to what they do is keep money staying in these programs that would normally be going back into the department's general fund at the end of the biennium. We have work on the depredation program. As you know, with the extremely high prices of livestock, especially cattle, that fund has been depleted to the tune of several $100,000. This would, in a small way, replenish some of that funding. We have money in this amendment for the local foods program, which is also needed badly here in Minnesota. We look at the down payment assistance program, and again made a couple of changes to make the program, I think, better. But maybe most importantly, if we don't do this extension, a lot of money is going to go back to the general fund, and we're going to miss out on being able to use those funds for the intended purpose, that being to help with down payment assistance. And the other thing it does, Madam Speaker, is that we extend the meat processing grants for another 2 years. And if we don't do that, we could also lose up to $500,000 in funding that would go back to the general fund from that program as well. So because these are good programs that keep money for the intended purposes, I would ask for your support, Madam Speaker, and I would ask for a roll call vote.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion. I recognize the member from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, we're in the second year of the biennium. Last year, we passed a budget, and some of these very items, the DFL side of the aisle wanted more money in, but it was resisted. We had one simple request as the DFL committee members on the Ag Committee, and that was to consider and vote out a ban on paraquat, a highly toxic, very dangerous chemical. There are actually members on the other side of the aisle co-authored that bill by Representative Tabke, but that bill was not allowed out of committee. Paraquat has a very high correlation with Parkinson's disease. And I think all of us know someone with Parkinson's. A small act that we could have done, but it wasn't allowed, along with many other bills in this divided legislature, to get out of committee. This amendment that's in front of us is a supplemental budget. It's a secondary amendment to an amendment in economic development, and it's connecting to a whole different agency, AURI, a deficiency payment. Now, members, we could have done a germaneness, we could have done a point of order and all that, but we didn't. I'm asking for a no vote on this because the rules do mean something. Putting together a whole budget as a secondary amendment on a bill that, frankly, in committee was voted down, the secondary budget, the supplemental budget, was voted down on a bipartisan basis. We usually don't do do-overs here. If it was voted down in committee, we didn't give it a second chance. Here it is on a significant number of items that are coming as a secondary supplemental budget, secondary amendment. I would ask for a no vote.
Further discussion to the amendment. I recognize the author, Representative Anderson, PH.
Thanks again, Madam Speaker. Well, members, we heard the reason we don't have an ag bill is because of one provision which we just didn't agree on with our fellow members on the Ag Committee. And to me, really, it's a moot point today because that provision was acted on in the Senate. It was taken out, ruled just the other day that it was not germane to the ag bill in the Senate. So here we are in the House going to take this bill down because of a disagreement on a provision. And I find that troublesome, that we can't do some good things for agriculture here in this state because of disagreement over one item. Again, if we vote this down, we are going to be losing funding in the down payment assistance program and also in the meat processing grants program as well. We won't be having additional funding in the depredation program and also in the local foods program, that these things are needed here in Minnesota. So again, before you push whatever button you're going to push, just think in your mind what's going to be better for the people in Minnesota, not just farmers, but people all around the state who could use some of the funding that this would provide to them. We tried to do the best we could under the situation of this disagreement, which with both sides have strong feelings on, and I understand that. But again, at this point, at this time of the session, that is a moot point. It's not going to be acted upon this year, and let's do something good and vote green on this amendment. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment to the amendment. The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hillsleep. Momani Hillsleep. Momani Hillsleep.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 61 ayes and 72 nays, the amendment to the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report.
Schultz moves to amend the Baker amendment as amended to Senate File number 2373, the fourth engrossment. The amendment to the amendment is coded A13.
I recognize the member from Morrison, Representative Schultz, who will explain the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. The A13 amendment should be viewed through the lens of a technical amendment. This is something that is broadly supported on a bipartisan fashion. It is something that has passed the Senate in the past. So this is something that has been worked on as a goal of making Minnesota a better place for business, and especially to reduce a very costly mandate. While this is very technical, Madam Speaker, I would really ask for all members to join in support of this amendment. This has to do with an additional fencing requirement, meaning 2 different fences around certain farms in Minnesota, being very, very costly, costing tens of thousands of dollars, raising the cost for some of Minnesota's greatest meat, quite honestly. And when we're looking at this, Madam Speaker, this is about making Minnesota more affordable and a better place. So I look forward to discussion on this amendment. I would ask for support of the A13 amendment.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, before I begin, I ask for a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing more than 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Representative Schultz is very incorrect when he states that this is a technical amendment. This is in no way a technical amendment and would undo critical protections for Minnesota's white-tailed deer population. This would remove the double fencing requirement for farm cervidae, which means deer, farms in Minnesota. Members, farmed whitetail and wild whitetail are genetically identical. That means that they can pass diseases, specifically CWD, which is similar to mad cow or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, to each other through one layer of fencing. Removing the double fence means that our white-tailed deer population will be very at risk. I hope Senator Schultz or Representative Schultz withdraws his amendment because he would like to make Minnesota more like Wisconsin. And I think there is unanimous support that Minnesota should not be like Wisconsin. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion to the amendment. Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. I stand in support of the Schultz amendment. You know, I think if you visited with anyone that's involved in this business, this is an unfunded mandate on individual businesses. These are mom and pop businesses. These aren't large corporations. These are individuals. These are farmers. This is a side business to a lot of people's agricultural activity on their farms. And when I've talked to these folks, they say this is the fundamental reason why they may not be able to continue in the business. Friends, if we want to have double fencing, then pay for it as lawmakers here in our state. Don't just simply mandate, but instead that's what we see over and over again. While the fiscal cost to the state of Minnesota is very small when it comes to demanding a private business do something, the cost of those individual businesses is exceptionally high. Or it maybe even doesn't work because the way the fence is built, it's right up to the edge of the right-of-way along the road. There's no real practicability to actually go through with it and actually do it. Friends, this is an important step that we need to take to understand individual small farm businesses, that we need to just step back, either pony up the cash as state lawmakers and pay them or pay for it, or allow grace for small businesses so that they continue to operate in our state. Please support the Schultz amendment, support small family farms, support individuals that we all represent, whether they're in your district or not. Thank you.
I recognize the member, Representative Anderson, PH.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Well, as has been stated a couple of times very well by my fellow representatives, this is an amendment for small farmers, small businesses, small farmers. We have talked ad nauseum in this chamber about what's happening in agriculture, consolidation, getting bigger. This is an area where we still have a vibrant group of entrepreneurs that have the difficult job of raising cervidae. And this fencing requirement is over the top, it's too expensive, and if we're going to mandate it, then by golly, we better pay for it. This is an important amendment. Thank you. Stand up for small business, for small farms, and support this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion? I recognize Representative Gander.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise in support of the Schultz amendment. It may be a bit more than a technical amendment, but it's absolutely an essential amendment. I agree with everything that's been said from the standpoint that we have probably an overactive agency that's coming into these small farmers and making them do something that is really cost prohibitive. It's equivalent to shutting down an industry. And maybe that's exactly what they're trying to do. We don't know about that. But just in case it is what they're trying to do, then they need to back it up with funding. They need to back it up and make that payment and prove to us, all of us, that really it's necessary. These farmers, these deer farmers will tell you that they can monitor their herds very effectively for the first signs of any disease, more effectively than we can in the DNR monitor wild herds. So there's even an argument to say that the wild herd is more of a threat to the domestic herd than the other way around. So it's an overreach, it's too much. I don't know that there's solid evidence for it, but if there is, and if you can show me that there is, then we need to pay for it because we're not going to shut down these businesses. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion? I recognize a member from Sherburne, Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's no question that the current law is overburdensome. These farmers have already taken the necessary steps to build a fence to keep their livestock in and managed. The DNR has come alongside and said, no, you need to do a secondary fence to keep the DNR livestock safe. This is very overburdened. Think about having a dog, right? You build a fence to keep your dog in, and your neighbor says, oh, by the way, build another fence so my dog stays in as well. It's unbelievable. This is a common sense fix to this, and the DNR should come alongside, and if it's that important to keep the deer separated, the DNR should come alongside and help fund the fencing, the secondary fencing. This bill doesn't ask them to do the first fence that keeps the farmers' livestock in. This bill says they shouldn't have the burden of the secondary fence. So with that, Madam Speaker, this is an amendment that should go on today. It's necessary. It helps small business. It helps small farmers. It's essentially part of this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion to the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Burkle.
Urkel, aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hildsley.
Momani Hildsley, no.
Momani Hildsley votes no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 65 ayes and 68 nays, the motion does not pass. The amendment is not adopted. To the underlying amendment, the A2. Further discussion. I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would urge adoption of the amended A2. It contains just a technical fix to that language regarding minor league baseball. Also contains the agreement that Chair Baker referenced regarding AURI. And members, it now contains a number of good provisions we just added in secondary amendment. Given all the good content, Madam Speaker, I would request a roll call on the A2 if I may.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing more than 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion, I recognize the member from Pope, Representative Anderson, PH.
It's been a busy day so far. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a quick explanation on the $80,000 expenditure for AURI. You may not know what that stands for. It's Agricultural Utilization and Research Institute. They do a good job in adding value to raw farm commodities produced here in Minnesota. And last year or so, last couple of years, they've been involved in a legal situation with another company that uses the same letters, AUR and I. And to this date, this is the cost of their legal defense for AURI in this legal situation. So what this amendment does, it helps cover the cost to this point of the legal costs incurred by AURI in their situation, trying to protect their name and trademark in this legal situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Speaker.
Further discussion to the amendment? If not, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members participating remotely.
Burkle.
Urkel, aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hildsley.
Momani Hildsley, aye.
Momani Hildsley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 125 ayes and 8 nays, the amendment as amended is passed. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Schultz moves to amend Senate File Number 2373, the Forest Engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A3.
I recognize the member from Morrison, Representative Schultz, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While this amendment isn't quite as technical and isn't quite as bipartisanly supported, it's an important conversation for Minnesotans. A few years ago, Earn Sick and Safe Time was passed, an unfunded mandate down to all employers in this state. Every single employer, whether it was a school district, whether it is a city, whether it is your mom and pop bakery, whether it is some of the most major businesses in Minnesota. Earn Sick and Safe Time is a unfunded mandate that has caused rising costs in Minnesota. My desire here in this legislature and for as long as I'm elected will be to help make Minnesota more affordable for Minnesotans. And since the time of its enactment and since the time that in 2024, when it was initially rolled out, Minnesotans have seen costs go up and up and up. And that has impacted us. And I'm going to especially highlight the grocery store. When we each and every week go to buy food for our family, the cost of goods has gone up, largely driven by government policies, and one of those very heavy unfunded mandates, which has resulted in higher costs of goods, is Earn Sick and Safe Time. Because every single employer in the state must, in essence, take on the cost without any other mechanism of payment, they must just pass those costs on to consumers for 6 days worth of wages every single year. 6 days worth of wages for every single one of their employees. Those costs come with no other mechanism than to increase costs for consumers. My concern is for consumers with a one-size-fits-all mandate that we saw with Earn Sick and Safe Time. So what this amendment today brings, members, is an opportunity for us to say, if an employer chooses to offer Earn Sick and Safe Time, they can do so. And there's a framework, there's a way for them to do so. But if an employer says that that doesn't quite fit the business model that fits for their business, and they would choose to rather keep their costs lower for their consumers, that they would have the choice to do so. This is pro-consumer choice. This is something that helps lower costs for school districts, for cities, for Main Street employers, for people across the entire state of Minnesota. It's important, members. It's important because we have seen an increased cost of goods. And last fall, members of this body went on tours of the state on a bipartisan fashion to visit folks specifically in the ag and food economy. And while visiting it was a Kemp's facility where they make top the tater, we had a discussion, a bipartisan discussion about what do mandates from St. Paul do for consumers? And we all hopefully love top the tater like I do. But every single container of top the tater has probably gone up by somewhere around a quarter just from Earn Sick and Safe Time alone. That's the impact of unfunded government mandates that impacts every Minnesota consumer every single time we go to the grocery store. And if you multiplied that, if you multiplied the cost of unfunded mandates on all of our groceries, every single good that was produced in Minnesota would be carrying that additional cost that's passed on to us. Minnesotans don't deserve that. We don't deserve higher grocery costs, which is exactly why this legislature should have taken action to hear the voices of Minnesotans and to help lower costs at the grocery store. This is one key way where we could have done that. Additionally, Madam Speaker, action on property taxes has reached a boiling point. We see middle-class moms in Brooklyn Center who can't afford to live in their homes and have and raise their kids in a home that they own because property taxes have gone up. And the reason that I bring up property taxes, Madam Speaker, is because Earn Sick and Safe Time is one additional stacking benefit beyond which has already been negotiated in collective bargaining agreements for local units of government. Which means, Madam Speaker, that all of us and every single property taxpayer is carrying the burden of this additional benefit for every single public employee on the local level, directly driving up property taxes in Minnesota. When someone from Duluth or someone from Bloomington or Minneapolis or St. Paul has a program that works in their city, allow your city to take your idea and shine and invite other people to live in your community, rather than telling the rest of the state who doesn't have a one-size-fits-all unfunded mandate passed on to every single employer that results in higher costs. Members, this is something where Minnesotans deserve relief from. This is something that directly impacts the nearly $1 billion worth of property tax increases that are happening in fiscal year 2026. Madam Speaker, the A3 amendment and changes to Earn Sick and Safe Time is a germane issue to Minnesotans. It is a germane issue to the pocketbooks of Minnesotans and the family budgets in every corner of this state. But this change to Earn Sick and Safe Time is not germane to this bill. I withdraw the A3 amendment.
Representative Schultz has withdrawn the amendment. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended.
Third reading, Senate File Number 2373, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Further discussion to the bill? I recognize a member from Candy, Ohio, Representative Baker.
Again, Madam Speaker, thank you for that, and members, and thank you for the conversation and the amendment discussion today. I want to thank my co-chair, Chairman Pinto, for working with me side by side on a lot of things during our time together here the last couple of years. This is the best we've got to work with our labor. We had a very good, robust conversation about what we could do on our workforce side of things. We aren't going to be able to get a lot done there because of the other body is not able to kind of pull it together for us, and that's really a missed opportunity. We had some really good things in there with grant reform that we worked together on bipartisanly. We're not dealing with that today, and I apologize for that. We didn't do enough, as Representative Schultz was talking about, to help our businesses be more competitive. We are putting too much baggage on our businesses over the last couple of years, over the last several years, and we need to do better in the future. And to our small business operators out there, we hear you, we know we have to do more, and we've got to find a way to get more support to lighten the load, and we are committed to doing that. But today, members, we do have some good things in the bill. I will have my co-chair kind of wrap up the details of that if he chooses to do that. Again, we have a lot of staff to thank and just folks to work through this good last 2 years. Our committee did a lot of good work on this. But we got to get this through. We got some good cancer stuff in here for Greater Minnesota. We did something with baseball. Go minor leaguers. Mr. Speaker, now, thank you. Please support the vote. Please support the bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I recognize a member from Ramsey, Representative Perez Vega.
Thank you. I just been want to
some grace here to both chairs of the committee on including the bill for our minor league baseball players. And I have to go into having the minimum wage requirements for extra hours of the work week. And as a proud St. Paul Saint fans, a minor league baseball fan, I appreciate including our minor league baseball players in this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I recognize the author of the member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I thank Chair Baker as well. We have worked well together. This is an interesting bill where it feels like the pieces that require the most discussion actually already came in through amendments, so we had discussion there. I'll acknowledge that there is, I think, frustration on both sides of the aisle about pieces that are not in the bill. We heard some of that on the withdrawn amendment and Chair Baker's comments about some pieces that my GOP colleagues are concerned about. That I'll say that my DFL colleagues feel extremely, extremely proud that Minnesotans now have access to paid family medical leave, have access to earned sick and safe time that they didn't have before, and recognizing on the DFL side of the aisle that there's some real pain and heartbreak about the damage that our small businesses have experienced and our workers and communities these past months especially. We have not been able to land the plane regarding that issue. We are in desperate need of economic support. Members, I'd urge your support of this bill. It contains pieces that have already passed off the House floor and pieces that have a lot of support. Although it's not what we want, it's going to move things forward a little bit, and that is a good thing to do. And I did want to thank, I won't do it by name at this time, but with Chair Baker as well, amazing staff on pulling things together, especially our nonpartisan staff. We are so grateful to them for their work. With that, members, I'll ask for a green vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Burkle.
Go.
Burkle, no.
Burkle votes no. Momani Hildsley.
Momanya Hiltsley, aye.
Momani Hildsley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 107 yeas and 25 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 4384. The Chief Clerk will report the bill.
House File Number 4384, an act relating to child care, modifying requirements for abusive head trauma training for health care providers.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Scott, Representative Bakeberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 3484 is a straightforward bill that updates Minnesota's abusive head trauma training requirements for child care providers. And it's a very, very simple, if you look at the bill, it just adds one line in multiple places that the training needs to be interactive. So family child care providers already do interactive training, but there is no requirement for child care centers for this training to be interactive. The law simply says that all the training needs to be interactive. There's no cost. Thank you to DCYF for your work on the fiscal note to confirm that there's no cost. As an educator, every year I have to go through, and those of us that are educators, we have to go through something called assurance of compliance. I see Representative Hill over there nodding. For us in our district, that training that we do annually is interactive. We watch a segment, and then we have to answer questions to make sure that we understand. Training matters, members. We understand that training is important when professionals, child care providers, educators are trained properly, they are able to respond quickly in emergency situations. That's the simple goal of this bill, is to take the currently required training so that we are able to
make it interactive for abusive head trauma beyond just the reading or watching. I want to say thank you to Brendan and Crystal McNally from Never Shake, Minnesota. They are constituents of mine, and we sat at the City Hall Creamery in Jordan, and we talked about this bill and many other ideas that they have. So, members, I would encourage a green vote. There is an amendment just to get the bill into shape.
There's an amendment at the desk. The chief clerk will report the amendment.
Bakeberg moves to amend House File Number 4384. The amendment is coded A1.
I recognize the member from Scott, Representative Bakeberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment actually came from DCYF, and it just clarifies that the training can be done online and it's done annually. So it's a very simple amendment that makes the training even more accessible to child care providers.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Katiza-Wattoon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Bakeberg. Members, this is a technical amendment from the department, and I would recommend a green vote.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The chief clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 4384, as amended.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Katiza-Wattoon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Bakeberg, for your work in this space. Members, as Representative Bakeberg had mentioned, the current training that is required is already interactive. However, this change in statute would require that future trainings continue to be interactive, and I recommend a green vote.
Any further discussion? I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Scott, Representative Bakeberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I just would like to thank the McNallys for their work and advocacy to make sure kids are safe across Minnesota, and I would recommend a green vote.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Burkle.
Go, John.
Burkle votes aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hildsley.
Momani Hildsley, aye.
Momani Hildsley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 133 yeas and 0 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 3891. The chief clerk will report the bill.
Senate File Number 3891, an act relating to agriculture, allowing eggs to be donated past their quality assurance date.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Myers.
Thank you, Speaker. House File 3579 or Senate File 3891 is a bill that permits donation of eggs to charitable organizations after quality assurance dates, as long as the organization meets staff or safety conditions and labeling requirements as detailed on the bill. You know, this is a piece of legislation we've worked on for a while. I've got a lot of support on it. Worked with Minnesota Department of Ag as well as local food shelves, food banks, and hunger relief organizations, and I would ask for member support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The chief clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 3891.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize a member from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a good bill. You should vote for it.
Any further discussion? I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Myers. You know, sometimes debates up here can get a little scrambled. It can feel like you're walking on eggshells. But I just wanted us all to look on the sunny side. We're helping to make an exception to an expiration date. And look, I'm going to let you vote soon. But let's just whisk this over to the governor, and I know for one I'm going to be voting shall yes.
Can the author beat that? I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, the author cannot beat that. That was probably a really good Chat GPT lookup. But what I will say is this is an exciting bill for me. My food shelf, we get about 65% of our food from food rescue. Every Friday morning, after I drop my kids off, I have a food rescue where I go to Cub Foods and, get a lot of different things there. But one thing I never get there is eggs. And I think with this change, we're going to see that ability for food waste reduction. We're going to see that ability of thousands of volunteers at local food shelves across the state to get more good protein into those food shelves to help support our neighbors that are in need. I do want to say thank you to both chairs, Chair Anderson, Chair Hansen as well, for hearing this bill. It's something that is near and dear to me, easy policy, doesn't cost any money, and I think it's going to make a big impact, so I would ask everybody to vote sunny side up.
There being no further discussion, I recognize after the author, the member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
And the only thing, Mr. Speaker, I was going to rise to a point of personal privilege, but I checked Rule 222. That's not allowed to defend someone else. But I want to note that Leader Long wrote that himself, not ChatGPT. Very offensive. I just want to make sure to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Burkle.
Burkle votes aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hiltsley.
Momani Hiltsley, aye.
Momani Hiltsley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 133 yeas and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. And a goose egg, darn it. The next bill on the calendar for today is Senate File 4339. The Chief Clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 4339, an act relating to utilities, modifying certain requirements governing the excavation notice system.
I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My bill on excavation, I hope everyone really digs it.
Nice.
Sorry. This actually is a very serious bill. Before digging, as I think most of us know, contractors must call 811 so utilities can locate or mark their underground facilities. This is a really important process because there's more and more stuff underground: gas lines, cable lines, phone lines, sometimes power lines, and more broadband. You don't want to take out a cable or internet, and you especially don't want to hit a gas line. Now, I've actually had several-year involvement with this area of industry and statute, 216D, sort of by, I would say, a little bit by accident in 2023, but it has been referred to as a delicate area of law, and it absolutely is. There is a wide variety of stakeholders of different sizes and interests. 2 years of intense work, starting in 2023, led us to modernize the statute in 2024. For the first time, I think it has been touched in a long time. So this bill, after some of the things we did in 24, is to improve on the communication process by putting in place something called electronic positive response. Simply, EPR is about having a structured electronic way of reporting back and forth between those that are marking and the excavation that has to happen. So everyone knows what the status is, where to look for the status, and what number to call if there's an issue. Even to get to this, there was a pretty extensive stakeholder engagement process and multiple other requests for changes that were kept out because there wasn't consensus. I ask for members' support. This is a bill about continuing to improve the safety of our excavation process in Minnesota.
There's an amendment at the desk. The chief clerk will report the amendment.
Sexton moves to amend Senate File number 4339, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A1.
I recognize a member from Waseca, Representative Sexton.
Good afternoon, members and Speaker. This is a very simple amendment. It talks about the fact that there is soil underneath our ditches, creeks, ponds, watersheds, and because, as Representative Kraft mentioned, we are installing so many of these facilities underground, we can drill them in, and we don't even know they're there. It's a good idea when an excavator or even a farmer or somebody else is going near one of these watersheds and excavating out to actually make sure that they get their one call done. So that's really the purpose of this minor amendment to the definition of excavation and the addition of the water body definition within the law. This is an important law. We talked about safety, safety, safety on many occasions. Representative Kraft mentioned that as well. However, this amendment came in late. I was asked to jump on this and co-author with Representative Kraft. So I'm going to withdraw the amendment, but we're going to set it aside as something we take on the next time around. I think we have agreement on that. And we'll work with all the stakeholders because there are a lot of stakeholders. And with Representative Kraft's permission, before he speaks on the final author, I could talk a little bit about it as well. But I'll withdraw the amendment at this point.
Representative Sexton withdraws his amendment. There are no further amendments at the desk. The chief clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 4339.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize the member from Waseca, Representative Sexton.
Again, 216D is all about safety, safety, safety. Now, I know Representative Kraft kind of categorized this for contractors, but actually this law is for all of our safety. If you wanted to go out and actually buy a tree, bring it home, and go ahead and plant it, there's a lot of exceptions to the definition of excavator in the law. But frankly, the best thing to do is mark out where you're going to put that tree, make the one call, and let them come out and make sure you don't have any utility underground. This isn't just for excavators, this is for each one of us to make sure that we safely dig, even in our own yards, our boulevards, in places where you wouldn't think there might be something there, but these are the experts who can make sure that something's not there. Now, what's unique about this law and what we're changing is the fact that if you call on Tuesday, or you can go online, which I prefer when I do my excavation, and actually describe my address, the fact that I've gone in my yard and marked it with white lines, like with spray paint, to show them where I'm going to excavate. Then at midnight Tuesday night, actually 12:01 technically on Wednesday, within 48 hours, anybody who has any sort of facility that might be in your yard or near there has to check to make sure that they are clear of where you intend to excavate. And if they're close, they will come out and actually paint on the ground with different colors depending on what it is, or put whiskers or flags there to show you how to avoid hitting their utility. Again, it's all about safety, safety, safety. Now, what's different and what this law brings about, which is really good, is at the end of 48 hours per the current law, you would just assume that everybody who has a utility that goes through your yard has actually come out and marked. What the law will now change is they have got to notify you electronically, whether that's a text, an email, a phone call, to make sure that we've got complete communication. Not just you starting a dig ticket, but them telling you that they've been out there and confirming that it's all clear. It's really that simple. It's taken a while to evolve, but again, it boils down to positive communications and safety. And that's really all it is. Representative Kraft, I thank you for the opportunity to be part of this bill.
I recognize the member from Lyon, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Kraft, for this bill. This is important. You know, you think about locating and the safety concerns we do have when it comes to construction. These are important aspects to a growing economy. As this new technology, this connectivity between the folks that are on the ground actually building, utilities, and those that find it. You know, there's other, like Flag Shooter out of Del Rapids, Minnesota, or South Dakota. They're a neat system that uses automation to plant flags to help locate. All these different businesses can all play a part in having a safe construction program throughout the country. So I commend Representative Kraft on this bill. I think it's a common sense thing, and I think people are going to be safer because of it.
Any further discussion on the bill? I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A few final comments. First of all, thank you, Representative Sexton. I'm actually very happy that you're now in the legislature with the experience you have in this area to work together on this in the future. Folks, this is absolutely nonpartisan. It is about safety. Once you learn about how excavation works and the risks if things aren't done properly, the risks to the people doing it, to folks that are nearby, to buildings that are connected to what is being excavated, you can't unsee it. And just to show how nonpartisan this is, the marine excavation discussion came from the American Petroleum Institute. And this is something that I have committed to work with the American Petroleum Institute on over the interim with Representative Sexton so that we can get marine excavation right for Minnesota. So thank you all. I'd appreciate a green vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Burkle.
Burkle votes aye.
Burkle votes aye. Momani Hildsley. Momani Hildsley.
Momani Hildsley, aye.
Momani Hildsley votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 133 yeas and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. I recognize a member from Anoka, Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move a recess to the call of the Speaker.
Representative Niska moves a recess to the call of the Speaker. All those in favor say aye. Oh. I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats will be caucusing in our caucus room.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. The motion prevails. The House stands in recess.